Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our discussion about water in 3 perspectives on the Amazon. My name is Jana. I'm the co-regional head in Zurich for Voraus. Voraus is a Swiss think tank on foreign policy. Voraus advocates a constructive foreign policy and a dialogue to form new ideas and publish scientific-based policy recommendations, and organizes debates like today with the aim of creating solutions for foreign policy. We have organized this event for the Culturescapes Amazonia Festival. This festival aims to provide access points to this critical ecological and social space, establishing a deeper exchange of knowledge with Switzerland and Europe. It also aims to raise awareness about the threat posed to the Amazonia by climate change, as well as the importance of indigenous cultures and global social responsibility. So Voraus would like to thank Culturescapes and the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation for making this event possible, as well as our hosts and experts for taking part in this discussion. Today, we will discuss about one of the most important resources in the future, water. Climate change is making water scarce and deteriorates the quality of water. Sustainable and alternative use of water promotes climate protection. We will discuss to what extent can water be used as a factor promoting stability in the Amazon region. In order to answer that question, we will first be watching the movie Tua Ingugu by Daniela Thomas, which gives a valuable insight about the indigenous Xingu peoples. This short film captures the relationship between the indigenous community and the river they live in close relationship with. The movie condemns water pollution as it presents challenging future prospects to both the indigenous people as well as those who live in the city. Afterwards, we will start with the discussion and we will end with the Q&A. During the discussions, there will be some images produced by George Steinmann and Ernst Bromeis. And yeah, this event is being live streamed and recorded. So thank you everyone for being here and thank you for the people online. And without further ado, we will start with the movie. Thank you.
Agrifiga fage mawiti toi. Nya ton pa kinya ho. Ka ho hege ka ho ha. Ka ho ha. Cantinho con itatsuna pa hege ne. Cantinho. Tinha nega hutto hageti heke. Tu tong bat sinya ye cantinho ko ti tokinho hege eku hege. Ambisanya, antutunya, tutenya, ogonya. Le peginyagi tanangoi. Pico che waki hagatra pa di costote. Wenta cantinho cottonelle ga tuagita. Taungi ekuhat ukungkoi. Nyelah ni kobogini kukinyan. Mongo, taungi hatoini. Nyalo aqui, ilagele taungi etnetagatan nyala tuai. Huku tawa ke tua tu bok titi to kin hege. Ule pelalin je le hege wente hotto tua tope wente tua tope wente. Kau ye ke le tu helo le so hige atapi le hige le. Ige kai ya tisi zomi. Ni ko zomi tsi hige kai. Una kan he kitele kunye gole. Na hetelo le. Que na tuai tulilo na ti saquinha que tuai tulilo. Wenda kuluene, wenda kurisehu, wenda tanguro, wenda ku agaupaha. Kanga higeya. Ticela kanga kinya la minte hale ko la mago hale. Kanga biaku ngel tieke. Ahi tuahumogo sahunto ukihagi tuguhi wagiti tanye ketoti kuogo tsa
Kato tegale ha ko tegale ponya lo limo ha tegale na gale ni na le hete. Point to you ha ti point to. Le ke le ha ti sa ko mo na na ti ha ka ta le so na ge mo na na te ke.
tôi mau huy giao pe huy cái quái cái pe nghe lời ngồi huy cái quái cái pe giao pe ho água ti se pon fazendeiro porra. Hakila kule ti se patu kole hakila le. Utehu eso. So sai tengal hekani, milo tengal hekani. Ulah telefone aging al heken. Ulah tele kongohong ingala. Ihu pertengala le tua kwati heke. Kongoha ke lige talo le pengen tati heke le. Toi li hola mati heke. hiu chia tê tiếng như mà cả chúng ai lại giữa bùng hoặc là nhà thì bơ là ha cảm ơn các bạn thì hạt tê thôi cái nhìn hiểu cho là tụi anh kia hạt tơ là nhìn hạt nhẹ tiếng asi cái tiếng hạt là ta có chức quốc tế huế số nào lịch sai ta hay cái hoa mấy cái thì nhà mình ngon lấy cái cái cú những coi ngọc kia ngã lợt thế à thế hả
ô mà nghĩ chơi cái ô ta lấy chơi cái cô do cái to mi ô hi và kỳ lơ ô hè kẻ gây ghi tì kỳ lơ ni.
Is it working? Yeah. Good evening, everybody. My name is Eric Nonchen. I work for the Foundation for Sustainable Development of Mountain Regions. We are based in Canton Valais, in Sion. I'm a geographer, and I'm here tonight to co-moderate this discussion about water with Christina.
Thank you. I'm Christina. I'm actually a lawyer, and tonight I'm working here as a part of Forhouse. Exactly.
Okay. Well, it's it's quite special to be here tonight. And for me, I can tell you it's the first time I moderate an event since all this pandemic and corona crisis. So at the same time, very, very happy to be here and to see real people again. And at the same time, a kind of apprehension and say, oh, do I remember I do this job? So I'll try to do my best. And what will happen tonight? How we organize this evening? We will make now the introduction of the panelists, and then we will have 3 rounds. The first round will be more a one-to-one. I will, and with Christina, we will raise some questions and ask the key messages for each panelist. And then in the second round, we will come with more general question and interaction between the panelists. And then the third part, interaction with you, the public, with you, the audience. Tonight, there are no taboos, there are no stupid questions, there are no wrong questions. We just will apply the common rules that we should have in an evening like tonight, a round table, meaning we will be respectful to each other. We certainly will not be on the same opinion on every topic, but there is a way to interact, and this way respectful, the believing dialogue are among the core values of Culturescapes, and that's how it will happen tonight. So thank you in advance for participating to this event in that spirit. We can now invite our panelists, and Christina will present them. So please, if we could come on the stage.
So I need my notes for the introduction. but I will start with Simon. Simon is currently head of the global program author at the Swiss Agency of Development and Cooperation. His job is to contribute to international policy processes regarding the management of natural resources in order to achieve the Agenda 2030. Together with his team, he's leading a significant number of programs to ensure essential support to people affected by water poverty around the world. Welcome, Simon. Then we have George, who studied painting in Basel and San Francisco. His artistic work is marked by transdisciplinarity, as it involves, among others, investigations in biodiversity and local knowledge of indigenous cultures. His sensitivity to global issues increased even more with the Chernobyl disaster, as at that time he was in the former Soviet Union. Then we have also Ernst, who's next to Eric. He also studied in Basel, but he studied sports. He used to be a triathlon trainer. Nevertheless, he felt the need to do something meaningful in life, which is why today he's a water ambassador for Solidarito and Blue Projects. As an expedition swimmer, which he is also, he still follows his passion for sports. One of the expeditions was 2,230 kilometers long, which he did in the Rhine, starting from its source until Rotterdam. This took him 44 days. Furthermore, he swam across each lake of Graubünden and across lakes of each canton. And last but not least, right next to me, we have Claudio. He's currently studying mechanical engineering. Before, he did a vocational training as plastics processor and one as a chemical lab technician. Since 2 years, he's a climate activist. He's involved in different projects, but mainly responsible for public work of the climate strike movement. The climate strike movement is part of the Friday for Future movement. The movement organizes several events and protests to raise people awareness and apply political pressure with very specific aims, such as the recognition of the climate emergency or the natural carbon emission until 2030. So welcome all. And I think we can start the discussion with the first question, Eric.
Thank you, Christina. I don't know what you think, but I personally think that we have good and in a way strange ingredients to make a good soup tonight. One could have expected to have a technician, engineers. No, we have an artist, we have a swimmer, we have an activist, we have someone working for SDC. And I think it's really, it gives the spirit of the discussion tonight. And I will begin with you, Ernst. You just listened to what she said. This guy, he swam for more than 1,000 kilometers down the Rhine River. Why on earth did you do that?
Because I love it. Maybe we can see the slide with from the space, because there is the Rhine. Yeah, exactly, it's the right thing. So this is the Rhine estuary. Here should be or is Rotterdam, and I didn't swim 1,200 kilometers, but 1,000 kilometers, 1,000, because 200 kilometers is there's the Rheinfall. There are a lot of dams after Basel, and also the port of Rotterdam. You need a permit to swim, so I was there walking. But why I'm swimming? Because I saw this picture before I swam, and this was the picture for my inspiration. As I said, here is the estuary, here is the channel, the English channel, and on the other side you see the River Thames, and lighted London. And when I saw this picture, I said to me, yes, Basel is next to the Rhine, Köln is next to the Rhine, Rotterdam is next to the Rhine, but also London is next to the Rhine. And then Zurich is next to the Rhine, but yes, it's difficult to say this in Zurich. But I would also say Zurich is next to the Amazon, and Zurich is next to the Nile, and Zurich is next to the Ganges. So this is my point of view, and this is why I'm a swimmer. When I'm swimming, I don't talk. It's quite difficult to talk when we are swimming. But now here, I'm more a water ambassador, and I try to speak to the into the schools and to the companies how important water is, and that water is really not the resource but the source which connects us all. And as we saw before, the people at the Amazon swimming, and when you take a swim here in the Limmat, or you take a swim here in the Lake of Zurich, and the people is swimming in the Amazon and you are swimming here the same moment, so you are connected with the people, and this is so a strong connection between us as human beings. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Yeah, in fact, when we prepared this evening, you told me Amazon is here, and I think it's an interesting point of view about the relationship. But as you're a swimmer, you spend most of the time, I mean, you're in the water, and do you think you have a bond with fishes, for example? Or can you explain to me your relation to nature?
It's quite difficult, but when I swam the last 2-3 kilometers before I was in the open sea, I was swimming, and suddenly I felt something on my back, and I was swimming, and when I left my head, I saw a bird, and the bird was landing on my back. And then I swam for a minute, and the bird came back, and this 2 or 3 times. And this was for me the biggest compliment, because I felt there, but I realized this after in Davos, not there when I was swimming. I realized that I was really part of the nature. I was part. I was not an enemy for this bird. I was probably the bird said, "Hey, welcome, you are now here," and this explains my relation. But I saw also the tragedy along the Rhine. After Basel, there are 10 hydro stations, and this is an ecological catastrophe, because I saw the salmons, and I saw I don't know the word in English, ale, so like snakes but fish, and I saw all the ales are in half, so. This is also the tragedy here. But I have not really a relation with...
eels, if I'm right.
Maybe, yes. I don't know that.
Eels. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. As an introduction, would you like to give us another specific message? Or I saw that you brought something, so an object, or would you like to tell us something?
Maybe really this point of view that we should maybe rediscover the Amazon here. So I think I spent this summer 6 weeks in Russia, the Lake Baikal, the biggest lake, it's an ocean, freshwater lake in middle of Siberia, and it was there where I realized, where is my Lake Baikal? Where is my Lake Baikal in Switzerland? And often when I see the small lakes in Graubünden here in the Alps, this is the original water from one of these little lakes when I swam this 13 years ago. And we, in our perspective, we are often saying, yeah, these are small lakes. We are only interested in the huge, in the Himalaya, Baikal, Amazon. No, we should rediscover really the Amazon at the Uetliberg. We should maybe also rediscover the Amazon in ourselves. Because when you are a relation with your own Amazon, so a lot of questions are finding the answer.
Thank you, Ernst. Really interesting, and maybe we'll come back in the second round about the relation between man and nature.
Yeah, I would have a question for you afterwards as well, but I will follow the next question with George. I don't know if you heard, but while you were entering this room, there were some music sounds of water that you could hear. And this was actually recorded by George Steinman. My question to you is, How do you explain the connection to your music and water? What is the connection?
Well, first of all, as an artist, I'm interested in aesthetics. Second, about the question, what is the responsibility of artists towards natural material like water, for instance, or the biodiversity? So, as to your question, the aesthetic dimension of water is not only visual, which I would come back maybe because I have an example from the visuality from that, but on the other hand, it's also an acoustic dimension. And this piece you mentioned, entitled Lofty Dryness, is a 5.5-minute composition recorded entirely from sounds out of glaciers, especially made with hydrophones. These are very, very sensitive microphones. So we put the microphones into the glaciers, into water droppings. So this then came to a composition which is just showing or sounding something which you actually do not really see, or you're not aware of it, even if you stand in front of a glacier. And since I've been working many times with glaciers, maybe there could be an image enclosed now from, yeah, exactly. This is a live concert from me on the Rhone Glacier. And no fakes, no overdubs, nothing. Just really sitting on the top of the glacier and play live for a video. This is just a video still. But the message is, of course, being aware about the problems of climate change, the problems about melting glaciers worldwide, and about water issues in the first place. So this commitment, the title is Blues for the Glaciers, is actually just to say, I'm concerned, I'm worried, and I think I would like to make a stand as an artist to give a contribution to solve the problem, to really work on it, especially on awareness for society. So this is a piece of communication. It was actually produced for my mandate I had at the climate conference COP21 in Paris, and it always was first time shown there, an artist making a visual, aesthetic, or acoustic statement as to climate change. Now I mentioned this visual side. I'll show you two little somethings, glossy, and this is essence from mineral water. Now if you drink mineral water, you have always a declaration on the bottle how much magnesium or calcium or something like that in is it. So since 30 years, I work with 16 different sources in Switzerland, extracting the minerals out and use these minerals for my work as an artist. This one is a source called Carola from Tarasp in the lower Engadina Valley. And it has two different colors, which is a phenomenon in itself, because the one color is from the water in winter and the one is from the water in summer. But I think as an artist, this is a very, very interesting thing of perception or awareness, of phenomenology, maybe even how water has color, the beauty of water. So this is a focus in my work with water.
Thank you very much. I think every one of us could see that passion that you have for water and how you include it. If I get you right, you try to raise the awareness of people with your art. My question would be, how do you take care of that it doesn't take the wrong direction? How do you address that?
Well, if you're talking about basic research, and that's what I consider myself, I'm a researcher. If you consider basic research, then there's always a risk also of failing. You only have to accept it, that within a dynamic process, Nothing can be totally controlled. So I'm totally aware about that while I work. Then the other thing is the transdisciplinary approach. I'm absolutely, totally convinced that in our very complex time in the 21st century, there's no simple solutions to complexity. So we're really into dialogue. We have to exchange knowledge. And in this case, I say art is a valuable and equal form of knowledge, just as natural science, philosophy, even the politics, the economics, and so on and so on. The issue is art is a very important, valuable form of knowledge to be included in this debate. So as an artist, I'm an initiator, I'm a negotiator, I'm maybe a diplomat, trying to make these networks together with scientists, together with people from the politics, from the economics and so on, to exchange ideas, to come to resolutions, to find out what can we create potentials for this. And so all my work is about communication, I think. You know, artists generally like to communicate. And compared, for instance, to climate science, just to give you an example, we have a tremendous crisis of communication because the issues are so very, very complex. And for instance, this image, this guy playing on a glacier, is a strong image, maybe making an easier way of communication to understand the complexity of a problem. So another potential of the arts, a driving force, actually. And within this, it's not about the arts, it's not about any kind of form of knowledge, but about our common responsibility we have to take for these major issues we are confronted with in the 21st century. And by getting into dialogue and networking, I believe very strongly, and this is my experience all the time, I think we can make it stronger. We can really have a stronger input if you're getting into dialogue.
Thank you so much. You were referring to the picture before. Now we see another one. Maybe you want to, as a last part before you go to the other speaker, where are you here? And
okay.
How is the song called?
This image is also a video still from a video. It's entitled Blues for the Sami. I've been working for now 30 years together with indigenous people all over the world, especially in the Northern Hemisphere, Sami, Inuit, Komi, Nensen, and so on. And this work is actually a result out of my mandate I had from the UN at the COP23 in Bonn. And it's entitled the Talanoa Dialogue. And really it's also, again, a statement to communicate. It's also a statement about being aware about the problem of indigenous people, because this is one of my absolutely major experiences in all this climate and other conferences. The knowledge of indigenous people, let's say in this so-called high-second panels in climate conferences, this is also true right now again in Glasgow, these voices are not really heard. They don't get a stand to explain their holistic point of view as to nature, their spiritual dimensions, which is something which is lacking very, very much in all these conferences. So this is sort of like a dedication to the holistic spiritual knowledge of indigenous people. So this video is recorded 300 kilometers north of Tromsø in the Arctics. It's Sami land, it's Sapmi land, and unfortunately, exactly this area also is under very, very big pressure because of a planned copper mine, which will be destroying this entire area, including the fishing for the Sami in the next generation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, George. Very valuable intervention, and I hope you're not disappointed. We took this point of view, you know, just make a step back and have some meta approach with the relation, nature, the value of art, and what is valuable here is valuable in the Amazon as well, and Amazon is here. Claudio, we talked about the value of art. You present yourself as an activist. What is the value of activism?
Tough question. I think the value of activism is it's a really important way to change stuff in the world. When you think about a lot of people that change stuff in the world, they did it more or less as an activist. They were not part of a party. They were not part of any governmental bureaus or so. So I think the role of an activist is to be a voice in the society towards something bigger.
And in your life, is there a trigger point at a certain time you decided to become an activist, or how did it happen?
I would say yes and no. I more or less part of a generation that grew up with the constant knowledge that there is an ecological disaster. For example, I don't know at which age was the first time I ever heard of climate change. It was, probably I was so young I can't even know it, but it's like knowledge that I know how a car works, because this is something that I'm knowing since I'm so young. And this is hard. You grow up, you have this knowledge, and you don't know how to engage with it. So I think for me then it happened something that happened to a lot of people in my generation. You try to ignore it. You try to live on, have sometimes a really bad feeling about what is happening and what are you doing, but you feel a little bit helpless. I can remember the first time I heard a speech of Greta Thunberg. It was in English class. My teacher showed her speech to us, and I know my thought there was, she says the truth. Everything she says is true, but it's too late. Nobody cares about it. So it's really, really bad when you have a generation that has feelings like that and you feel helpless. Then 2019, the big climate demonstration happened here in Switzerland, and it gave me hope and it gave me initiative to really take something and not just being there and having the fear of a future you don't know what will happen and that you can't change something at all about the future.
Thank you. So you're not pessimistic? I know that George will later in the second round, we will talk about hope and being pessimist. But you, now, are you pessimistic?
I hope I'm not too pessimistic. But I think in the general sense on making a better future, I always say to myself, when hope is lost, you has lost anyway. So when you just give up, you lose anyway. But when you have this bit much of hope, it can be enough to change the world. So for me, it's important to somehow preserve that bit of hope, even when it looks really dark.
Thank you, Winner.
The last question we have here in this kind of introduction round would be to Simon. Regarding your job, it's a quite complex job you have, and I think most of the people here, or at least myself. Perfect. Does it work?
It is.
Perfect. I would like to know, what is your job? What do you do in your daily life to address that water issue?
In 30 seconds, it's a challenge. I'm heading division at SDC. That's most of you might know. That's the branch or the arm or the office within the Department of Federal Affairs who is doing international cooperation. And there I'm heading this global program Water. We're mandated by, of course, a law and then also a bill that is approved every other 4 years by the Parliament, where it says you do work on water. Now what we do is really in a super nutshell is, of course, we do contribute to WASH, to achieving SDG 6. SDG 6 essentially means water, sanitation and hygiene for everybody through different mechanisms, partners. But we do much more than that. We also are very much engaged in what we call water diplomacy. Water is increasingly scarce, of course, and is today, let's be honest, it's a source of conflict. We have counted last year, not 2 years ago, close to 50 conflicts on this planet who are somehow related to water stress. And just one famous example is the so-called Gerd Dam, the Great Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. It's a huge dam project raised by Ethiopia, and of course this causes a lot of problems with the downstream countries, Sudan and Egypt, who fear that their life stream, the bloodstream of these societies, is cut off, or at least for the time that the dam is, or the dam is filled, or this basin is filled, they will suffer a tremendous reduction in the available water. So we are there with different instruments, with also organizing safe spaces for other countries to talk and to deal with all these issues peacefully around a table, rather than to shoot at each other. In a nutshell.
Perfect, thank you. So you proactively search the dialogue wherever you have that project.
Absolutely, and we believe that dialogue is always the means, and non-dialogue is never the means. So we would also talk to all stakeholder groups, to politicians, but also to civil society, to churches, to activists. We do believe that we all need these roles in society to raise issues and also to raise problems. We also talk to private sector, of course. We cannot say we would spare one actor group from the issues we have to deal with, and Glasgow has shown it. We are in front of the greatest challenges humanity has ever faced, and as you might also know, water is the first and also the most significantly affected material cycle of climate change. So you know it all. More or less water, water stress or floods, or in all these water systems and climate systems, you have more energy in it and brings more storms and more calamities. So water is essential and is the blood of humanity, and we have to solve it by having everybody aboard, not just a few ones or not picked ones.
I see you have a bright knowledge on water. Where did you get that from?
Well, let me. Yeah, I'm an ag economist by training, and but I've started my career at SDC working virtually digging holes and ditches and screwing. How do you say, wells in Nicaragua for a number of years. And I was always between food security and water throughout my almost 20 years. And what we have seen in this movie is absolutely, in 8 minutes, a very sensual way to touch the issues in Brasilia, but elsewhere too, where expanding agricultural land at the expense or at the detriment of forest, of unused lands, is of course posing a huge problem. It is, and of course we deal with a lot of information on water. I have that every day on my screen, so it has accumulated for the time being. Final thing I would like to say, I had this tremendous privilege. I just recapitulated yesterday. It was exactly 27 years ago, at my tender age of 22, I had the chance to do a trekking tour in the Amazon basin with my, at that time, girlfriend. Today it's my wife. It's still my wife. We had it in Puerto Maldonado, which is a rather tiny city in Peru, in the Amazon of Peru. And it was so impressive. It would not even, what you have seen here is very impressive, but once you're there, it burns into your head like never before. So yeah, water is I fight for water. I work for water, and I would like to, with my team, with what we do, we would like to contribute in a meaningful way to make a tiny little contribution. We are not naive to believe that we can save the planet. For that, much more efforts are needed, but with that knowledge, we would like to make a contribution.
Sounds like a good approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. So now we can go to the second round. So you will be able to interact each other, to ask questions to each other, and I will raise the first question, make a remark, a statement in the beginning. At SDC, you have a magazine called One World, and I would like to talk about here and there, because in one world, meaning there is only one here, and we are in the middle of everywhere. It can be in Switzerland or in the Amazon, and I would like to talk a bit about what is considered as valuable. And let's go to the old man in the movie. The old man, the ingenious man. You already said something, and I saw that Claudio was really interested about that. You said we don't care about what these people say. We think that what's valuable is in another part of the world, is among the researchers, the scientific, and what can be said and done through art, or the knowledge of these people is not considered valuable. So what's valuable today, and how is it considered, and how can we change it? Maybe George, you can begin with trying to answer to that.
Okay, in the meta level, everything which is common for all of us is a major concern as to this fierce urgency what we are in, including the issues of water, sanitation, pure water, and so on and so on. It's a systemic problem we have in general about our ecological crisis in this planet. And we have to be aware about how vulnerable, how sensitive all these issues are. And by being aware about this, we have, as you just mentioned, maybe a very, very little contribution, but better a little contribution than to be cynically not having any idea anymore, like saying, well, how do I care about the future generations? You know, I mean, as long as it's fine for me at this time, you know. So this is a question of responsibility. It's a question of ethics. And I really actually think water is a fantastic, unfortunate, fantastic example for our moral crisis we have in general about issues from nature or relation to nature. This very unfortunate dimension between nature and culture doesn't work because this dualism is not in question anymore. And through that, whatever we do And that's what you actually referred in the beginning is, I had this statement written for my mandate in Paris. It's called What Change Can Art and Culture Achieve? And I say just one sentence, it's there's no time left for pessimism. So that is indicating what you say, that's what you say. Let's hope, let's work on it. And I believe, and that's what I said before, to be creative in any fields, not only in the arts, to be creative is an incredible potential to have a little contribution to improve the situation for all of us. And of course, what you said, and I love it, you know, the Amazon is within ourselves. It's right there, you know, no matter where we are, who we are. Yes, the Amazon and the Nile and the River Rhine is within ourselves, you know. And that's why, last sentence is, I'm not only concerned, but as a sensitive person, I'm also very much worried about why certain forms of knowledge, and I refer to indigenous people's knowledge, is not really included in these questions, as we see in this fantastic short film. You know, I mean, it goes so much to my heart. And, you know, if you're talking about sustainable issues, and especially about the Agenda 2030 and all the SDGs, you know, there's maybe one point which is lacking. There's no soul, no emotions. We need more empathy. And if you're empathic, then you really can understand what this person in the film is telling us about water. And this is pure desperation, but also very, very honest. So I'm very, very touched by such an issue.
Thank you. Claudio, about the old man, tell me what you think about this old man in the movie, and how you think we respect him.
I think the old man in the movie has a really wide perspective of the world, and I think he probably knows stuff we will never know, also on a emotional level. But yeah, I think he has no real. It's a bit mean to say, but I think he don't really have a value in a discussion of the climate change for the people would say that have a possibility to change stuff. How to say that? You said it's important to have a discussion with everyone possible, but in reality, often is then when everybody meets to talk, in the end, the person that decides what comes out of this talk is the one that has the power and the money. So, yeah, I mean, you can. Good example is the COP26 now in Edinburgh. We have underrepresentation of indigenous people. We have a lot of states that will drown in the near future, not that representative there. In the same time, the biggest delegations are rich countries that are not really interested in pushing forward because, yeah, they don't like to have some obstacles in economic development. And the other, it's funny, it was just shortly released, the biggest delegation, bigger than any nation, was the fossil fuel industry. So I'm a little bit cynic here, but yeah, I mean, we can't talk. This old man, he can't talk to everybody, but it doesn't matter because he don't have the money and the power that is necessary to bring forward something forward in our system. Yeah.
Thank you, Claudio. Maybe we can come back later on this notion of power. But I have a question for you, Ernst, and then you can maybe relate to that. Yeah.
Wait with the question. I want to say something. Sorry. My my theory is that we are all disconnected with the world. And this is absolutely the opposite to the people in the Amazon there. They are absolutely connected with the world. And the challenge for us is to rediscover this world, and also here in Zurich or in Österreich and in Germany we have this word Umwelt for environment, and it's in my eyes it's so stupid to talk about the Umwelt and my Welt. So and this is from a point of view, a psychological point of view, completely not the right way. So this is one point, and the other point is for us. It's also for us. It's really difficult to be reconnected. And I have a second little souvenir, and this is my knife from the Baikal this summer. And I think we should take a knife and try to cut away a part of the civilization, and then we will find the essence really of life, and then we are back to nature, and then we are back to the Amazon, and then the solutions are so clear, so evident. About pessimism, I was for a speech 4 weeks ago in Graubünden in Bonaduz, and I talked to 15, 16 years children, and I'm a water ambassador, and I asked to them, do you think we need more water ambassadors? Do you think there are 20 children? And then one person said, yes, we need more water ambassadors. It's so important to fight for water and human rights and go. And then the other girl said, forget it, Ernst. We don't need more water ambassadors. It's all, yes, there are no future and on this world. And this is also really a fact. Probably here we are all we are all activists, and we are all water ambassadors, and we are fighting and ta. But there are also 50% of the population for the old generations, for the young generation, 50% they are pessimists. I don't really believe it. So, sorry.
No, you're right, and in a way you answered to my question, because I wanted to ask you. It seems that we need more empathy than technology.
Yeah, but the empathy is first. We human beings, we have a lot of. We are thinking about new technologies. How can we bring back the microplastic and the macroplastic, and so. We are always looking for technology, but the main point is, why is this all there in the ocean? Why? And this is the lack of empathy. And this is the point. And when you are swimming in the Amazon, I'm sure the people there, they know this is the source of life. So we should appreciate the source of life. But we saw a picture of Moscow before, and yes, exactly. Here you will see Moscow, and there are a lot of lights, and but the river here, it's only a little bit coulisse, huh? It's only for the show, but the river is absolutely dead, and this is the reality, and this is Glasgow, this is Zurich, this is the reality.
What do you think, Simon?
First of all, we would definitely agree with more water ambassadors, so we would join this call. Now, but maybe personal view. Being pessimistic doesn't help anybody and helps nobody and nothing. Okay, you can accuse me now of being over or optimistically just for the means. But no, I think everybody has a responsibility, and yes, it's difficult to change systems, to change policies, to overcome societies or things how they are. There is inertia. There is also political interest behind this. There is all a system that derives that lives out of that. But we should also look at the tiny little steps that are made. Yesterday, I don't want to be over optimistic, but there was just this news out there that for the first time, even after if you disentangle the COVID effect, then the CO2 emissions have come to a more flatter curve. Well, is it that now going into a right direction? At least it's not as steep anymore, right? Okay, that might not satisfy you in a pessimism, but I don't think that if we are pessimists, that will help anybody. So we should really see the opportunities out there. And I would still react on what this, I consider this, he's a very wise man. And probably unconsciously, he has understood the essence of life on this planet, without maybe even knowing it academically or in that sense. And he's pointed to the issues. He has pointed to there is maybe civilization, there is maybe cars. We have seen some infrastructure, but we also have seen this dirty water, untreated, released into the environment, which is a perfect sample of the world, how it is. Anything. There are different estimates, something between 50 and 80% of all used waters on this planet are still released into the environment untreated. It's just the way it is, and we have to work step by step and push things forward. And that's why we say activists are as important as politicians, even though nobody's perfect. I know I'm over-optimistic, but I believe, personally, pessimism doesn't help anybody.
Simon, you said that everyone has kind of a responsibility to take contribution towards this issue. There's a trend that we should eat less meat and boycott the meat industry. And if we think it through, it also has a huge impact to have a vegan lifestyle on the Amazon region. Which is the way to go then?
That's really a good question. That brings us back to how are we connected to the Amazon here? And yes, we are. We are connected, maybe more than what we think. I have just gone through a study that was commissioned by the Federal Office of Environment. Switzerland imports about 200,000 tons of soybean every year for fodder for animal production, and also there is some meat and other products based on soybeans and corn that is imported into Switzerland. So we are connected. That comes this fodder comes mainly from the Mato Grosso area, and the study that was commissioned done by a Swiss university also came to the conclusion, although there is certification of some farmers. There is, of course, still some serious issues environmentally and socially, namely also the pesticide issue that was also touched upon here in this movie. What can we do as a person? And now I speak that also as an ag economist. You find in the internet fairly. Okay, we have to change systems. But what can I do individually? Yeah, and there is an American professor that says we can actually boil it down to 5 very simple thumb rules. Eat less meat because that's the most important carbon footprint and also water footprint with the highest impact. Particularly beef and lamb, a little bit less pork and poultry, but essentially eat less meat. Now, is that a plea for veganism? For some, it's okay, but we should also know that not all the areas can be actually used as The Alps, you can only use it meaningfully with livestock, right? And the second one is, of course, avoid food waste. That's another very important source of CO2 emissions, which are simply not useful, simply useless, or avoidable. A very easy, low-hanging fruit, just to avoid them. And then, of course, buy as much as you can locally, seasonally, and as much as you can organically produced. And if you want to add to that, you can also, how can I say, really, organically. That's the word, to have higher standards in the production. So if you follow these 5 very simple rules, not necessarily going into an extreme, but striving to this way, everyone can actually make a small difference. And what we see is Switzerland's meat consumption lies about 56, 60 kgs per, and I hope no meat lawyer or meat advocate is here. Really, I do eat meat, but I also try to reduce my meat consumption. That makes, we don't need to eat 80 kilos a year. It's physiologically not necessary. We can also live out with 20 or less. So that's the simple things we can do. It does not, of course, compensate or free us from fight for or work for change in the systems. Not to be, let's be honest on that.
George, go for it. You want to say something?
Yeah, that's a very, very good point about meat. But I give you a very lively example about other agricultural products. Yesterday, I witnessed in one of the big providers of Switzerland about blueberries. I've been working with blueberries since 35 years in all my work. So I'm collecting the blueberries and I make color out of them, use it for paintings and so on, you know. Now, by looking at the products yesterday, even so-called biological products, the blueberries on display were from Morocco, from South Africa, from Peru, and from Argentina. And the difference between a real blueberry, which is including this healing potential of myrtillin, which is, for instance, an eye therapeuticum, but it's also antiseptic, is entirely lost in these products because, I mean, the berries are as big as a strawberry. And, you know, it is absolutely clear that a blueberry is growing in certain geological tectonic situations in the northern hemisphere, in forests in Scandinavia and so on, also in the Swiss Alps. So to have blueberries sold from Morocco is just absolutely absurd. And especially, it does not include any of this healing potential. It's just big, has no color, no taste, nothing at all. So how come that this kind of berries are sold while we have tons of blueberries in the Swiss Alps?
Yeah, Claudia wanted to say something.
Yeah, and I think we have to be careful not to go in a trap with saying individualistic action can change too much. There are numbers, I think around 30%. 30% is the number of CO2 emissions you can actually reduce with conscious consumption. Why this number? It's because we don't have really too much influence on how our lives are and how we consume. Because, yeah, for example, blueberries, they come from anywhere. I can't control where the blueberries come in the store. But for example, we have in Switzerland quite a problem that a lot of farmers have to destroy perfectly eatable food. there is, for example, the Rampe 21 here in Zurich. They are all about saving food, but not food that customers don't want to eat, but food that was not beautiful enough for the stores. So we have a really huge food waste just because the stores want perfectly sized, perfectly shaped potatoes. And I'm struggling, how can this be right? And yeah, I mean, we have tomatoes in the winter. It's a standard sentence, but why do we have that? Why is it so important for the people here to have tomatoes? And why do we want the stores to have tomatoes all the year? So because when you have something, people buy it. So I wouldn't blame just individualistic actions to be the main reason why we are where we are. It's because there are so much we don't really have control.
But there are also interesting, maybe another point of view is that the society is really also shifting. Because, I mean, I was for 10 years now in Davos, in Graubünden, and it's a reality that that you and we, the most people, so 70-80% of the guests, they don't drink more Mineralwasser from, I don't know, from Italy or from Geneva or so. The most people are drinking really water from the tap. So, and this is really a shift. And the mineral industry, they have a problem because things are changing. And also this little detail, tonight we are drinking here water from Zurich, and it's perfect. These are the details, and when everybody will do this, we change really the world. Or if you take a shower tomorrow, try not to take a shower 2 minutes, make the shower maybe 90 seconds. It's enough. But when we have 6-7 million people in Switzerland which will do this, so we will save a lot of energy. So there is really also the little steps we can make really a huge difference.
Yeah, thank you, Ernst. I would continue on that topic, but from the entry point of responsibility. We are all aware, and I'm sure we all agree about the fact that we have our own responsibility and we have to try to do our best. But in a way, okay, I take my example, I agree to eat less meat and choose from where the meat is coming from, but we are invaded like the blueberries by meat coming from Uruguay, and when one of the provider has this kind of meat on sale, then all the providers, you walk on the street and you look at the billboard and you say, oh, beef and beef and beef, and at prices that stupidly incredible low, and you say, how is it possible? So my question behind that is, okay, at our level we can do something, but don't you think that there is something wrong, or that we have to behave or to make some drastic changes on other level? Maybe Simon, what do you think about that? And what could be done?
Doing individually something is an important step. It also provides legitimacy in what you talk. But I want to stress, what we do as a consumer does not spare us the humanity from other policies and from other ways we're gonna build our societies. We have to change our energy system, and also how we produce. We need more circular type of economy and recycling much more. We need to change completely our energy system. Okay, we're deriving a bit from the water issue now, but it's all linked together, so we cannot actually disentangle it. The CO2 footprint is one thing, but I would like to come back to the water footprint. The water footprint is as important to what we consume. And a number of years ago, STC did a commissioned also a study what was then done by WWF on the Swiss water footprint of our consumption. Turns out 80% of what we consume is actually made outside Switzerland. So food, clothes, cars, computers, all these products, they have all a tremendous water footprint, and most of that is done outside Switzerland. And okay, if it's done somewhere in Sweden, if you buy let's take a Volvo, okay, they have a lot of water. But most or a lot of stuff we buy is produced in countries where there is huge water stress, where all the sectors and also water consumption of private hold is competing to each other. And of course, with our purchasing power, we have then we make that that stuff comes to us. And one example, fresh potatoes produced in Egypt, produced on fossil water, probably there millions of years down the road. Once this water is used, everything is gone. No job, no water, nothing anymore. So we have a responsibility as consumers, but also Switzerland, to look at these things. Now, do I have a solution for that? Not an immediate. We all know that that of course trade laws is a framework that cannot be unilaterally changed as is easy, but still it's important to talk about this, to raise awareness, to have consumers aware of that can and contributes without or knowing that it will change the world from one day to the other.
Yes, George.
That brings me to the point once again. We have tremendous crisis of perception. So we have a crisis of ethics. And this involves everything: water, of course, agriculture, fossil energy, economics, and so on and so on. So if you really, and that's very urgently needed, if it must change, we have to make a systemic change of this entire system we're living in. Now, we all know this is not just like that possible. It's very, very slow. It's very, very complex. There are a lot of, that's what you mentioned, lobbyists. That's what I witnessed myself in many conferences, having the fossil energy even influencing ministers from environment, you know, from the fossil energy industries, for instance. So yes, it's complex, but nevertheless, you have to be aware that this is an entire interconnected phenomenon of a much bigger scale of crisis. And by trying to do something, that is something has to do with awareness. To be aware about the example of meat, the example of blueberries, even if it comes to water. To give you an example, I had a mandate at the university in Mexico City that was including on the trails of Alexander from Humboldt to go into the rainforests in the area of Veracruz. And, you know, we witnessed what that meant for the local farmers to have lost all their groundwater for the water industry for a certain beer, which is also exported to Switzerland, which you get in most every store. And it just totally ruined all their existence. For generations, they were working for farming and for fruits and for whatever, and the groundwater was just lost because it was sold. And they don't have any access to it. So a catastrophic, non-sustainable issue. And here, are we questioning that when we go into the store and buy this beer? No, not at all. I'm afraid not. So awareness about small things maybe help already quite a lot.
Hidden water, huh? The hidden water. We talked a lot about the hidden water. There is water everywhere. Just another question. Is water a community or not? Commodity or not?
You mean a commodity?
Commodity, yeah. Yeah.
You want to, and it's of course not. In reality, in some places it is, but of course not. the UN is pretty much clear. Access to water and sanitation is a human right, and it's a natural resource. Of course, there is commodification in some areas, and that's a huge issue. And in a perfect world, there will be sufficient regulation by the state and also law enforcement that would prevent commodification of water, or to ring fence it so that it is bearable and nobody is spared. Of course, as you can imagine, we do not live in a perfect world, and there are all sorts of issues and things like that happen. But no, water is a public good, and access should be granted to everyone.
I would have a quick question. As Claudio said, it's not mainly on us to change it, but also on people where the money come from and governance. Do you feel that the issues you raise in the climate strikes, that they get addressed properly? And maybe, Simon, for you, how do you address them? Maybe you can start.
So on the question, do you think the problems we say, if they really are be erased? I think no. I think it's yeah. I want to be too bad here in this panel, but yeah. I mean, for example, the Amazon now emits more carbon dioxide than it absorbs. So we have there some trigger points reached, and the thing is, when we reach trigger points, we can't go back, and there will be a destruction of something that no generation after us will ever see, and have no possibility to go back and preserve that. So yeah, I think the climate emergency is not in the heads of the people that have power, and so yeah, my hope is more is not really that I can convince them, because I'm not in a position to do that, but rather to help people to understand that, and to help people, to show people ways how they can change something without being relied on some powerful people.
Do you want to take that question? A question, do you want to react to that?
To
what Claudio said.
Can you repeat it? Sorry? Your question?
It was not a question, it was just his statement. Do you want to react to that? He feels that the issues are not addressed properly.
It's a difficult question. Of course, they're not addressed properly. Then, if they would be addressed properly, we would probably have solutions. But there is so much complexity, and systems tend to be inert. It takes a long time to change things, to change ways, and you can go into philosophy and maybe psychology as well, and think, why would people stick to the way they live? And maybe even if they see things, we're just going directly into some serious troubles, and we might still not change our ways. What are the reasons for that? I don't have an answer, but I think we would like to see transformational change. Transformational change would imply almost revolution. From one day to the other, things change, but typically it doesn't work like this. We have to step by step and try to divert the direction of our way, how we release our CO2 emissions in a more realistic way. I do not want to comment on what we have just gone through here in Switzerland. It says something. But we still have to work on that, and I think everybody agrees to that. How we should do it, you tell me.
Maybe for a simple example, with tonight's discussion we have here, so that we can imagine how does that go forward. Is there a follow-up internally, or how do you involve that topics we just discussed here? How can we ensure that we are heard?
Yeah, maybe we let her answer to that, and then we open to the public. It's
only a little detail. When I prepared for this discussion, I realized that there is an incredible direct link between the economy and two of the most powerful companies of the world. You know, it's called Amazon. It's interesting, eh? And the other one is Apple. So there is absolutely a link, huh? And maybe we should find and try to find a new language to talk. Maybe we are always talking about the same. And maybe we should talk about the origin and maybe with Amazon, with Apple, because there is, I'm convinced there is a reason behind.
Yes, George, please.
Very good point as to other language. That's why I say the arts have another form of language, but it's equal, you know, because in the power games of the politics, and now let's really speak straight, as we are just having the conference in Glasgow at the moment running on, you know. Scientists, especially climate scientists or experts in biodiversity, as we are talking about Amazon, for instance, you know, they have telling us for decades about facts. What is the risk? What is happening if we exploit it further on the way we do, and so on, you know. But climate scientists are rather desperate because they have communicating through thousands of pages from the IPCC reports, telling us the facts about what is the risk, including water. But it did not really arrive in the politics. Now, really, we have to take the politics, the decision makers in the politics by the word. Now, they're really in charge to deliver. We are not anymore waiting for any kind of small talks and blah, 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 blah like this. No, really, at this moment, we really have to take them into responsibility. So I think there's a big, huge gap between all of what we are talking about and between the decision makers on the high segment panels in the politics. And we have to let them know, to come back what Ernst said, maybe we need a different vocabulary. And the different vocabulary is empathic, it's honest, and it's also about trusting. And if you're looking at what the discussions are going on in this kind of conferences, everybody is suspicious. They don't trust each other. So why shouldn't we trust each other? That's a huge, huge potential. In German, Vertrauen. That's a very big thing. So this kind of language, we maybe have a little bit to focus more on it.
Thank you so much, George. And I propose to close this part of the discussion with a statement that I found especially for you. The artist has the power to awaken the strength to act that lies dormant in other souls. From Nietzsche. And with that, I propose that we open the floor to the audience. So there is one mic there with Jana, and raise your hand, and maybe you can ask the first question, Jana.
Maybe we could have someone from Culturescapes explaining the next steps to raise awareness to the Amazon. Maybe Julian, you would like to take the word?
Okay, you take me by surprise. I'm just witnessing the discussion, and I feel lost. We had other discussions during the Culturescapes in the last 6 weeks. We are running a lot of programs in Basel as well, and we often had indigenous people on stage. It was not possible this time, but honestly, when you would have a Davi Kopanava or you would have a Iba Sales Huni Queen sitting here and talking to us, they would ask in the first place, why did you came in the first place to us? I mean, we didn't invite you, and then you start to tell land is a property. We never saw it like this. Or for us, you don't dig and take things out of the ground. What is under the earth is not to be taken out. Very basic principles, which are based maybe on empathy as well. But we try with Culturescapes to raise this, to use art as a tool for artivism, which maybe makes sense now and then. What are the next steps for Culturescapes? You asked this, Jana. Are we still running 3 weeks the Amazon Festival? There's still a lot of programs going on here in Zurich with the Schauspielhaus Zürich, or in the Photo Museum Winter Tour, extremely important exhibition on Claudia Andujar. And then in 2 years we want to go to another area where water is a huge issue, which is Sahara, Sahel. And maybe to react to the discussion, maybe a tool could be for the topics raised, if we would have the real price of products. No, without the things, I mean, even a bottle of water, the energy you use to produce glass, and then later on, the real price, the full cost picture, the true price picture of products, we don't know. This is for later or for others to solve. But could there not be an instrument established to have a real price, so that we actually know, which includes the carbon footprint, which includes all the kind of footprints we now only know by sort of. But if that would be in the price of products, maybe the consumer would be different as well.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm also an artist. I connect very much to this. My question is quite poignant. You talk a lot about system change, and you talk about empathy and about a lack of trust. And what breaks trust is when trust is broken actively. And I don't know about you, I've been ripped off before for profit. If you can, some people will rip you off, will break your trust if they can profit off of that. So that really brings me to the question: can we sustain the ability of our Mother Earth to sustain the human race while keeping up an economy based on the profit motive, while keeping up the capitalist mode of production? All of you, really, because you've been tiptoeing around, like you say, system change, but what does that mean?
Yeah, okay. I mean, this is a very complex question. No easy answers. It needs a lot of discussions and awareness. However, I do have a certain point of view. Yeah. You know, one of the systemic problems we have is our entirely economic-oriented globalized world. It's capitalism. It is including so much of exploitation, it's including so much of greed, so much of selfishness. All these aspects are totally disastrous for a future viable society and for coming generations. So, of course, this is a utopia. But we have to be aware, I guess, that this system we are running right now is a dead-end road. So we have to come up with so new solutions. So let's talk about it. That's why I really say, let's build bridges. Let's talk to each other. And that's including the economies. You know, I just recently got a video from an NGO about the 10 largest banks in the world, how much they invest into fossil and nuclear energy since the Paris Agreement 2015. And it's billions and billions of it. So how to change this attitude? And we're talking about 2 Swiss banks as well. So one of the system changes certainly is to be aware about the economics. It needs more sustainable respect. It needs more sustainable economics as well. So that's maybe one of answer, maybe a little bit desperate, a little bit helpless, but nonetheless.
I see Claudio jumping in his seat. You want to add something?
No, I totally agree with George. I don't have to add something.
There was another question here in front.
Thank you. So kind of related to what you said, instead of breaking trust, I think it's very important to build trust, especially when you talk about international cooperation. And I wanted to ask you, Simon, if you think this isn't part of the work that you do, that you actually take the time to build the trust and work with these power imbalances.
Without trust, you cannot cooperate, or you only cooperate once and never again. So societies who have a trust issue will not run. We do, of course, in our partnerships, help to trust. And the example, what I said in what we do, what we call water diplomacy, is very much about trust. Almost everything is about trust. You can imagine we do water diplomacy in different regions in the Middle East, in Central Asia, also in West Africa. And there are people around the table, sometimes they have just shooting at each other, literally, of course. And building trust is the fundament of cooperation and to come up with a solution, with joint solution. So yes, that's an essential part of what we do, of the work we do.
Thank you very much for your thoughts. Trust has been mentioned several times. I wonder, can we trust ourselves? Can I trust myself? Right? You said something very important, all of you, reconnecting with nature, not considering nature as a means to an end. Now, it started long ago that we decided to do that, right? Humankind defined its own rules and the resources, the environment, including everything it has, a means to an end, so that we have our rights fulfilled. So my question is, and it goes a little bit into your direction at the end of the day. There is little we can do individually, but maybe that's the only thing we have. Can I trust myself as a human creature, as a human being? Am I so better and different than all others, all these bad politicians and bad profit-making companies? Would I really be so different? Would I really be so different? Am I so different? 10,000 years ago, I decided to colonize nature. Here I am, civilized, modern, right? I feel culpable, in a way, There is a lot of discussion going on about that. So how do you find out of that?
Maybe before you can trust yourself, maybe you have to be brave. Brave, courage. We should be brave. Because I think also in Glasgow now, the solutions are here. We know the solutions, but we are not brave to go this way, to trust, to be reconnected also with Eric, with Simon, and so far. Brave as first step.
I will jump out of my position for a few seconds, and just to say that 3 years ago, I organized a roundtable about cosmology and the way, since the beginning, we have imagined our relation to nature. And when you talk about, or when we see these indigenous people, at that time it was with the indigenous people of Australia, or our cosmology, the Bible, or other cosmology. And there you see that the roots very, very far away in our mind, just designed, and they are part of who we are today. about this relation and how we interact with the other being that in the environment, in our environment, or the human being, or a plant, an animal, the air, and how we behave, and I think there is something there to dig and rethink about our cosmology. But I stop here. It's not my role tonight to take the floor. There's another question here. Second row. It will come, yeah.
Thank you very much.
It's not on. Yeah.
It's on now.
Now, yeah. Thank you very much. I ironically actually want to ask about bridges. Like in my head, it's an image to not touch water, but I want to relate it to water. And there has been a lot of talk about bridges, building bridges between disciplines, between humankind and nature again. And some solutions have been sketched or like touched upon, but I think I'd be interested in like digging a bit more into actually potential ways to really build those bridges. Art can be one, but yeah, if you can just share a bit more thoughts you had in those directions. And actually a bit, if I can, then all of you, because I think bridges have to come also from different areas. Thank you.
I would like to give you a good example, not talking about the arts, but about SDC. SDC has, as I remember, had a project called Blue Peace, together with the Swedish government, about water projects in the area of Syria, Jordania, and in this region. And this is an incredible bridge building project as it comes to peace and prevention instead of conflict raisings or even war. So I think this is exactly what a bridge building can do. Negotiate, talk, include partners, cooperations on all levels, and not only in the academic or scientific dimension, but including local knowledge. So maybe a farmer from this area, maybe somebody who's a fisherman or somebody who's absolutely really touched by this problem. But just an example, yeah, this, I think for me, that was very, very impressive when I read these papers a few years ago. But it's fantastic example for cross-building, cross-bridging with different attitudes and different political agendas and so on and so on. So, yeah, a good example, I think.
May I react on that? You hear me? Yeah, you hear me. So, Blue Peace, actually that's the key word. That's the name of the diplomatic initiative and also the name of these programs, which come, all these programs, we have several of them in different regions where we have these diplomatic initiatives. And as Switzerland, we benefit from a standing which is much more neutral. We're considered like an honest broker. We're not France, we're not England, we're not the US, we're not China, we're not Russia. They all have, of course, an understanding and geopolitical interests. So we can act in these areas as a neutral country, which is really a good thing. And Blue Peace is a program that entails these diplomatic initiative, but also at the same time provide capacity building to water experts, to hydromet service folks, meteorological people, those who measure actually this. And coming back to that notion of trust, we have seen that when we provide or when we promote or when we enable joint education or training for these engineers from different countries, and even if they do their graduation together, decades later they would still work together, although maybe their heads of state are in a complete dispute or or there is issues between these countries. But because they have gone through the training together, they trust each other, but have this connection. And this, again, shows that we need to build trust among all these stakeholders. There is too much distrust, and only with trust you can cooperate and you can find all these solutions. And in all these regions, there is only a joint solution because all the water is shared, it's transboundary, it flows, the rivers that are the life blood streams of these countries, they flow from one region, from one country to another, and whatever all the riparian states, those at the upper part of the river do, will affect the lower parts, of course. So cooperation is life essential, and trust is the precondition for such a thing.
A question here, front row, and where's the mic? Okay.
Apologies, Eric. Can I share a few thoughts quickly? I was, by the way, I'm part of the team of Simon in Bern. Last week I had 2 hours exchange with the youth parliament in Bern. 2 hours crossfire of questions and answers. And it was absolutely mind-blowing, because I think we all understood that we have some real basic, deep-rooted systemic issues to fix. Real ones. We are having processes that go 180 degrees against sustainability, and we talk about Agenda 2030. And that's for economics, that's for ecology, but also for society. And just to name you one, Jurian, you were right, the question about real cost. That would fix a lot. Another one is, the more you use of a resource, the less you pay per unit. Come on, who has invented such a stupid thing? It can't work, you know? The other one is, the polluter pays. Wonderful principle, accepted in Switzerland. And what did we do? This year, we rejected the pesticide initiative and the clean water initiative. Come on, let's go home. There's no hope, isn't it? Okay, there is still hope, because either you're a pessimist or you're an optimist. But none of them is helpful. You need to be an activist. That was what the young people understood. They were trying to find out good resolutions to propose to the real parliament in Bern. There's more to say. I think we need really a discussion on values. And we need to start very early, at an early stage. And we need to be examples. It's rather simple in a way, but it needs courage and it needs determination. And if we don't do it, it won't change anything. Honesty, humbleness, mindfulness, these are not just words. These are really deeply rooted values for societies. We have lost them for money and for other interests, personal ones. We talk about CO2 reducing, don't fly to Greece, don't buy a car, don't eat meat, and our dear Elon Musk shoots people to the space just for fun. Come on, this is not acceptable. So we really need to fix these things. I have 4 kids, Simon knows. And I've started believing that we need to change with youth. So I come to the PR part now. After having tried to raise awareness in 2018 with 125 postcards exposed on the glacier of Aletsch by youth from all over the world, yes, media saw it, but it didn't change again. So I'm sick and tired of raising awareness, of dialogue, of talking. That's all good, but it's not enough. We need actions. We've started the 1 Million Youth Actions Challenge this year, addressing 4 SDGs, water, consumption, production, climate change, and biodiversity. These are the green cluster for me of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. But please, don't go home tonight and don't change anything, because then nothing will become better. And it's not about change, it's about transformation. Because change means just, okay, we replace a diesel car with a biofuel car coming with energy from the Amazon. So it's not going to fix the problem. We need transformation, and we need societal transformation, which means we need to decompose everything like a puzzle. You decompose everything and you recompose anew. but we're only working for change because then we can stay with what we have. We just fix a little bit here and a little bit there. Sorry for monopolizing 3 minutes, Eric, but having co-organized with Jana, I had to say something. Thanks.
Thank you, Daniel. Okay. So after that, who has the courage to talk and raise another question? We have another few minutes if you want. Anywhere we'll... Oh, yes, there is one here.
Okay. I'm actually really glad that you stood up and said that, because I was like jumping around on my chair because I wanted to say stuff about that, but I'm really nervous about talking in front of people. Anyway, I wanted to address like how you were constantly talking about like how important it is that we're talking about it, how we're raising, how we have to raise awareness and that people have to be empathetic. But I am 21 years old and I feel like my time is running out. So I feel like you can be as aware as you want to be, but like if you keep the water running while you're brushing your teeth, like I can be aware of that the water is running, but if I simply don't care, I'm not going to turn it off. So about all of this like pessimism stuff that you were talking about, you can be pessimistic or you can be optimistic, but like you can... Yeah, exactly, be an activist. Yeah, you can be either of those, but like to be optimistic or pessimistic, you have to care. If you simply don't care, you're neither of that. And I feel like the pressure is too high to only be talking about be aware of it and try to care if we have to like actually act on it. And I just wanted like to generally ask, what do you think, like, how high is that pressure actually? Because I feel like it's like weighing down on me and I'm trying to like plan my future and I don't know how to, because all I know is like, how has it been, but it's probably not gonna be the same future for me as it probably has been for you, since I'm guessing like you're older than me. Yeah.
You mean by time is running out?
I have read about like the year 2050, how also like these trigger points were mentioned, like there's no going back from there. And I feel like we have to like actually hurry to not reach these trigger points. So yeah, this is like a really general question, but like I would be really interested in like with the work that you do, like being active, not pessimistic or optimistic, like you're actually active. How much do we have to rush?
I guess she's expecting one answer from each of you, and then it will be almost the end of this round. So let's take your question and end with that. So she's expecting something from each of you. Who wants to begin? Claudio, maybe?
Yes. When we look at the scientific facts, we really have to rush. So it's not enough to talk, and it's also not enough just to have some plans on how to reduce. You have to actually reduce the CO2 emission. Since industrialization, we never were able to actually reduce the emissions. So as long we don't even manage to that, I'm rather pessimistic than that we really change something with talking with leaders and powerful people. But I believe in talking. But talking with people that are near to you, to talk to your neighbors, talk to your schoolmates, and organize, try to build up something, because as one, we don't have a chance in this world, but as community, we might have a chance to change the world for a better. And also, as community here in the rich northern hemisphere of the world, I think it's really important to also help those communities that are not that fortunate to be in such a position like we, like the indigenous people in Amazon, they don't have a choice like we have. So I think a solidarity with those people and solidarity with the people around you is the most important thing you can have in these dire times.
Thank you, Claudio. George?
Yeah, thanks for that. Solidarity absolutely is a very important point. And then we have to take people into responsibility for not acting in the politics. So really, your question is, are we running out of time? Yeah, very, very urgently. I mean, we know the facts, we know what to do, but we don't do. You know, we don't do what we know. And this is a really dramatic kind of situation. I give you one example, which is not kind of like a hysterical kind of manifesto, but it's a fact. 56 Nobel laureates met 10 years ago for a think tank about the future viability of our world, including the ecologies. And the manifesto they were writing was entitled The Fierce Urgency of Now. And it's including Nobel laureates from all the fields, from the science, from the philosophy, from the arts, even Dalai Lama, for instance. And this manifesto, it's a dramatic appeal to our society, to our civilization. But there was no resonance. To all the politicians I worked and talked with, none of them ever have heard about this manifesto from 56 Nobel laureates. And that's why there is a huge gap. So there's a fierce urgency of now. We really have to act, and we have to take the people who are in charge into responsibility.
Simon?
I have to make a difference between what we can do as an agency. Of course, we continue to be, we continue to make as much difference as we can in the water sector, which is all, everything is linked to climate change in these series of areas we work in. And you have heard Daniel, he's our activist, the oldest in our team, but in his mind he's the youngest. And so I'm glad he's on board. That's one thing. That's what we do. That's also our mandate. We're mandated. We cannot just do whatever we want. We have this bill, and from there we have a more clear mandate derived for our unit, which is, as I said, it's contributing to WASH, contributing to peace and stability around water, also water pollution, other things. That's one thing. Then the other thing is, of course, we as individuals, I come back to that, we can do, and of course in our behavior, but also we can all contribute to, Claudio says, talk to neighbors. Swiss voters have rejected the law in May. Was it in May? Yeah, it was in May. Yeah? The CO2 law. Everybody knows we just cannot go to daily business. We have to stand up again and find ways, as a society, as a country, we have to find ways how we're going to fulfill the pledges and promises and obligations we have from the Paris and now from the Glasgow Agreement. So there will be a need to stand up again. And we are all individuals, we're all citizens, we can act for ourselves, but we also can become political. And that's what we can do as individual. We cannot change things, and just yelling, maybe that's sometimes needed for your own psychology, but it will not help. So let's act together, each one at each stage, at your individual level, maybe at the political level, but then also, if you can, whatever means at your hands in your work. So there are different things we can do, and I would really make a plea: let's not despair in front of this. Yes, we have to hurry as a society. It's we're close to to a whole series of trigger points, and I think science is so clear that we have to change our ways. That's true. But again, I would really make a plea here for action individually and not too desperate on that side. Thank you.
Ernst.
Damaris is not my neighbor. It's I'm your father, and you are my daughter. Yes, you know, we are talking a lot and about activism and about my job, and I'm talking a lot with you about your future and about yes, and I think I'm so glad about this, and I believe that because I believe really also in something incredible, because one of the bridges is in Arnhem in the Netherlands, and this bridge is called Nelson Mandela Bridge. And Nelson Mandela spent 30 years of his life in the jail, and he failed 30 years. But now when you're looking on the world, you can see there is a lot changed. So it's not possible today, but we can fight today, and we will change the world, I'm sure.
Nice conclusion, huh? Well, thank you to the panelists for these brilliant interventions, and thank you for coming tonight. And now maybe Jana will say a few words as a conclusion.
Yes, thank you very much to all of you. Thank you to our guests, to our hosts, to everyone here and online. We are also organizing another event in Bern at the end of November, considering the Mercosur agreement, to keep the conversation going and raise awareness. And after the event, there's a bar outside, and feel free to get a drink and strike up a conversation with us. We're all around afterwards. Now we'll watch a very short movie before closing for good, and Daniel will tell you more about the movie.
Thank you, Jana. It was not foreseen. I shouldn't have taken the mic, but as an activist, you can't stand still, you know. Damaris, you raised the 1 million question tonight about the future and the question of velocity. And you could not know, I'm going to be a bit emotional now, what this means for the end of the evening. Last night I received, really last minute, a documentary about exactly the same region where Ingugu was filmed by Daniela Thomas, the Brazilian filmmaker we worked with in 2019. And for those of you who have a good memory of images, you will recognize at the very beginning of the movie the big hut from where the man came out and went to the clean water. And the rest is what you see. And I just think there's no words to be used to say how urgent we need to change our way of behaving and living. Thank you very much.
Muito fumaça aqui na aldeia, aqui, ó. Cara, ardendo os olhos. Isso nunca tinha acontecido aqui no Xingu. Tá cheio de fumaça, você não consegue nem respirar direito, você não consegue nem enxergar direito. Tudo queimado aqui. Queimou. Para combater fogo aqui tá difícil, tá, gente? A gente tá tentando aqui apagar, só que muito difícil de a gente apagar, porque o fogo já espalhou quase tudo aqui no mato. Tá difícil, muito difícil.
Estamos aqui na terra do Xingu, estamos combatendo fogo na região do Yaramã.
A gente não temos condição de combater sozinho. Estamos preocupados com essa floresta queimando.
Porque por conta pelé, tem lá 8 morrinhas. Com isso, 8 morrinhas. Lá em botar o pé, o andar todo lá, tem que ser, mas não dá isso aqui. Quando viram a gente não é que lá em botar o usar aqui, pelo andar lá aqui, também botar o tamanho da visa, lá nem legal de ali. Lá tem, mas não dá isso aqui, com essa tinha ontem, então nem toda. Cai aí, tudo aí. Lá que tu tinha um dar em qualquer. Já tá.
Rồi mà hi đâu hi nghe hay cái con to họ nhá thì cái phần con ta đấy hả cái gì cái không nhá luôn là hạt cười cốt rồi hả phần con ta đấy hả cứ cái này to cái tuổi ta rồi nhá luôn là cô quay như rồi phải cô quay như cô cái đó cái là lên lên là cái tin nào còn nó cái bắt đầu lấy cái tên là rồi nào hi đâu phải tên là hồ cái là đấy.
Olha aqui o chão aqui. Eles tentaram fazer aceiro aqui, mas mesmo assim o fogo passou. Vocês fizeram 3 tipos de aceiro, né?
3 de aceiro.
Não adiantou nada.
Não adiantou nada.
Nossa, muito triste ver isso. Fogo queimando a terra do Xingu.
Até por lá o tio, não passa que tem tinho e toia, gati hati hogatinho. Le pego cola tinho e do lado que cola aí tudo que te hungilo te hati sanga lá. É que eu te ga lá hati hogo não hata ga liga ha do recuega te be por até que te hati sanga. Anda te lá que te hati nyangilo hata lá liga enyo te hai ga que te hati ni longe. Lá tá chega lá ganga pa hai những cái những cái pa ngungi hay cái những cái te hai con ta hi cái on ta wanga pa nhờ mingo hi cái gang nó hon ta. Então, a gente está muito preocupado. Nossa floresta está queimando muito, nossa mata está queimando aqui no Xingu. A gente está preocupando muito. A gente viemos aqui voluntário para apagar fogo aqui.
Viemos aqui para tentar salvar a nossa floresta, nossa mata, importante para todos os seres humanos, para nós todos, né? Que a gente pode salvar animais, naturezas, matas e outras coisas também. A terra não é só da gente, não é só do povo indígena, para todos. E estamos tentando aqui salvar. Muito fumaça aqui na